Hey, what's up everybody? It's me, JBFlintlock. So if you watch my last couple of videos on bench shooting, both heavy guns and light guns, there was some information that I just didn't cover. I missed it, you know, whatever the case may be. I apologize for that. I don't want to leave you with more questions than I answered. You know, that's not what I'm trying to do. So in this video, I'm just going to cover some questions that came to me via email, and you know, I'm just going to run right down through them. Now I'm going to step back to the bench as I do it, and then I'll pull the camera in for some shots, things like that. Also, at the end of the video, I'm going to go over this bench. So this is my bench. The one that you see in the previous videos were my wife's bench. So just stick with me, and hopefully we'll cover a lot of stuff today. So a lot of these questions come from a subscriber named Hank. Hank asks, do you weigh your balls, cast or swaged? So I do. I cast all my balls for everything, but particularly the bench guns. I cast them and then I weigh them after they're cooled. So what I use are little plates. These happen to be for my wife's gun. And then I write right on the plate the range of weight. So you kind of have to know where you're starting. You probably do about 20 balls and you'll figure out what the range is for most of them. But so now that we have the range figured out, so like in this example, we have 231 grains up to 231.5, and then we have 231.5 to 0.9, 232.0 to 0.4, and 232.5 to 0.9. So it's basically it works out to about 2 grains. So I keep everything within a 2 grain window, but then I batch them into half grain batches. Anything that's under my minimum gets recast. Anything that's over gets recast. And you'll find as you do it, you're going to end up with like a lot of the same one. But there are subtle variances. That's why I do them in batches. Do I think that it really matters? No. I don't think that the weight of the ball matters, but I do think that going from the highest weight to the lowest weight between shots does have an effect on it, if that makes sense. So basically, if you were to just take them as cast and pick them out and you get a really light one, and then the next shot you get a really heavy one, yeah, it's probably going to not be shooting in the same place. Do I think that one weight by itself shoots superior to the other? No, I don't. I think that as long as you batch them together and your consistency's there, you're going to shoot well. Now, when I change bags, I tried not to, I put them into sandwich bags and then into my shooting box. I don't change weights in the middle of a target. If I see I'm getting low and I don't have enough to finish the target, I'll wait, you know, I'll switch to the next relay or the next whatever. I don't go in the middle of a target. If I, for whatever reason, would have to do that, I would go back into practice and make sure that it's going, you know, hitting in the same spot that I'm sighted in for. So that's how I do that. Let's see, what's the next question? What is my patch lube? So on bench guns and most of my offhand guns, I shoot a cotton canvas with Teflon sprayed on one side. So the Teflon, I don't know exactly, it's just, they call it Teflon. I don't know exactly what the chemical is or how it bonds or anything. What it allows for is you can load tighter and therefore build more pressure and the patch stays together. So it also, because it's a dry lube, does not infiltrate your powder charge. So when you're shooting bench, you might sit there for 5 or 8 minutes between shots. Your patch isn't drying out as if it were liquid patch lube, and also the liquid is not infiltrating your powder, affecting your charge. So being a dry lube, it takes care of that. The downside to it is you have to clean every single shot. So that was the next question. What do I clean with? So if you watch my video on gun cleaning, I give the formula, but basically it's what a lot of people call moose milk. It ends up being white. It's a gallon of water, 8 ounces of water-soluble cutting fluid. I use Mobile Cut 100, which is the, I believe, Mobile One brand. Water-soluble cutting oil, and 8 ounces of Murphy's oil soap. That's it. Mix it together, shake it up. I keep it in a laundry tub, like a old laundry detergent bottle. That keeps the light from doing any funky things to it. And then I dispense it into, I don't have the bottle out, little bottles of Dawn. I like those. So that's what I use for cleanup for everything. That cleans it. And then when I'm done, I oil it with Barricade. So it was recommended to me to not use certain types of synthetic oils because they can penetrate the pores of the barrel and affect accuracy. Barricade is one that seems to have shown that it doesn't affect accuracy. So that's why I switched to it about a year ago. Let's see. How do you switch between AMS and open sights? Okay, so we're going to get the gun out for this one. At the Nationals, when shooting light bench, 2 of the targets are any metallic sights, so peep sights, and 2 of them are open sights. So what I do is I get sighted in, usually I start out with my peep sights. The peep sights pretty much ride on this gun all the time. So what it is a round aperture in the front and a Redfield International peep in the back with a Merit adjustable iris. So when I'm sighted in, I set the gun up on the bench. Now the relay has to be open for me to do this. Can't do it when the relay is closed. But then I just take my open sight mounted to, and I keep it mounted to an aluminum block, 2 screws, and I just screw that in. I had it. There it goes. 2 little set screws, hold it in place. Now I'm not going to crank it down today. And then I change my round aperture for a post. So it's just a metallic post that goes in. So what I do is unscrew the housing of the front, pull the clear plastic out, place the post in. Let's take it all the way out. Okay, so you got to pull the little insert. Finger's not big enough. There it goes. So I take the clear out. Now I know I'll probably get asked, this is a 3mm. That is what I use. Yours will be different because if your barrel length and the length of your sight plane is different, that may not go around the black of your target. And it depends on if you're shooting an 8-ring or a 7-ring black. So if I'm shooting 7-ring black, which is what they do at the Nationals for light bench, I use a 3.0. So whenever the way the post lines up, it is centered on the same center as this. So in theory, when I look through here at my open sight, everything should be in alignment because I was just sighted in. All I did is replace the circle in the center with a post. So when I get down on the gun, it lets me know that I'm in the relative ballpark, right? It's not sighted in. You wouldn't want to go on record target with it, but it gets you really close. And then I take the single screw out of and remove the peep sight. So now I'm just left with a rear open sight and a post. This is a Thompson Center Contender rear sight, and it's okay, but I'm going to change it. And I'm going to do a video on it because the reason being is the windage adjustment is too coarse. When I was shooting 100 yards, it was moving me from the left side of the 10 ring to the right side of the 10 ring. And I may have a picture of the target from Nationals. So what I ended up doing is having to do a little Kentucky windage with my front post to get worked over into the center, because one click was putting me to the wrong side of the 10. So I'll end up doing a video on that where we talk about, and I change this sight out for hopefully something better. Okay, so the next part of that question, that's how I switch from AMS to open. Do I aim center bowl or 6 o'clock hold? So I know a lot of guys that shoot 6 o'clock hold and they do very, very well. And that's probably the better way to do it. However, not necessarily for me. Depending on the day. When I get on the target, if I have a good contrast between my post and the target, so the post is black because it's shaded, the target is black. Depends on how the sun is hitting it, whether or not I get a good contrast. If it is crisp and clear, I go for center hold. So that's how I shoot all my offhand guns. Everything like that is center hold. Now, if I go and my post disappears in the black, then I will adjust my sight in practice and go for a 6 o'clock hold. What I don't like about a 6 o'clock hold is I feel like, yes, I can see my sight very clearly. I have trouble with repeatability, just for me. I feel like I've performed better on those days where I can see it and do a center hold. It just may not be the right thing. There's a lot of guys at a very high level that shoot 6 o'clock hold. So I'm not going to try and talk anyone out of it. You have to be able to see your sights, period. If you can't see them, then it's no good either way. So we'll leave it at that. How is that huge glove on your support hand used? Okay, let me grab it real quick. Okay, so he's referring to this glove that I used in my previous videos. It's a fingerless glove. It is a big honking thing. It's kind of weird to wear, but your fingers just protrude out a little bit. It goes on here. The way that it works is you have to support the rear of the rifle. So the front of the rifle is supported by the bench, and then you have to pick up and hold the back. Now, in the case of this light bench gun, it comes to a point. It's not, my regular bench gun has a flat on it that kind of guides over this. This little point kind of digs in. So if you had it on your bare hand, it would, when it recoils, it would be uncomfortable. So I usually set it right on my fingers. Now there's different schools of theory. You can run your arm parallel to the gun and come around like this. I've done it that way. You can be perpendicular to it. I kind of, depends on which gun it is. With this light gun, I do typically run my arm more in line with the gun. But what I do, rather than set it up on my hand where it's fat and there's lots of give to it and there's a lot more padding, I come down onto my fingers. And that's the same for all my guns. I adjust the height so that all I need are my fingers underneath it. There's not as much give in your fingers. There's not as much of a pulse in your fingers to affect how you see it in your shot. Not to say that it doesn't exist. If you didn't have blood flow, your finger would be dead. So there is a small amount of pulse that to be felt and seen, particularly if you put a scope on this where you could really dial it in and see up close. you would see there's still a pulse down there in your fingers that affects the position of the rifle and everything. So, so that's how I use the glove, is I put it, it's basically just to protect my finger, offer a little bit of padding for when the gun recoils and comes off of position. As I said in my previous video, I'll touch on it again. My heavy gun, I lean into it and I push it up against the front stop. My light gun, I do not. I've found that this gun in particular does not like pressure on it. So what I do is I come around the gun, I use these hooks on the trigger guard to keep it tight to my shoulder so that it doesn't, the recoil isn't excessive. If you leave a gap between your shoulder and the gun, when it recoils, it'll hurt a little worse than if you have it snug against there. So I hold it tight against, but not up against the stop. So, all right, on to the next question. I did not make the glove. It is a Protector brand. So Protector makes all kinds of leather pads, pouches, things like that for Benchrest shooting. They make rear supports, front supports. That's who makes the aluminum adjustable front support that I use for my wife's bench. They make rear sandbags, things like that. Those are not usable in NMLRA Benchrest shooting. So those are more for modern guns, things like that. NMLRA, you have to use it. So really, you end up with I've seen all kinds of different gloves, even just a piece of leather draped over your hand. Do I work up a load for 25, 50, or 100 yards? No, I do not. I shoot the same charge all the way through. So in this gun, I shoot 80 grains of 1.5 Swiss. This is a 50 caliber, shoots a 500 ball with 20 thousandths Teflon. I do not change for the different distances. I make sight adjustments, whether it be with my open sights or my peep sights. I make sight adjustments. Ballpark, it's 14 to 16 clicks for between 50 and 100 yards. They do have matches at Friendship that go to 200 yards. I have not shot my light gun at 200 yards yet, so I can't speak to that. Next question. Are your barrels bedded? In this gun, it is. In fact, the maker of this gun bedded the rifle, and it is not removable. He did not remove the barrel in time. It is stuck in there. I've had this rifle probably 7 or 8 years. It has never been removed from the wood. Do I bed all my other guns? Bench guns, no. They're different style. They only have a rear buttstock, so they're not bedded. Anything else that is more like a half stock style or a full stock is bedded. All my offhand guns are glass bedded. They also are all taped in. I do not use anything for underlugs or screws or pins or anything to hold them. I let the barrel and wood move independently to a certain degree. They're taped together, but if the wood wants to swell or move, it's free to do so and not apply pressure to the barrel. I learned the hard way on that. I was at a shoot that it was raining, I was camping, it was just high humidity for days. I went to shoot, I was shooting offhand at multiple targets, just terrible shooting. Got it home, figured out what it was. The wood had swelled and put pressure on the cross pins. I drove those pins out, took the underlugs off, taped the barrel into place, and it has never given me a problem since. So that is how all my wife's, my stepdaughters, my offhand guns, everything like that, that's how they're done. They are shooters. They are not presentation pieces. So when I have the chance, if it's applicable, I bed them. Do I lap my barrels? I have in the past lapped one of my bench guns. I did it with the help of a very experienced barrel builder. I did not do it on my own. As I do more of them, I will probably gain more knowledge on the subject and be able to make a video on it, but we'll leave it at that. It's a very simple process. It is also simple to screw up if you don't know what you're doing. So I was under very experienced guidance when I did mine, but it is something that does have to, it is necessary, particularly on bench guns, that you rough them up. They can get too slick and you'll lose accuracy. Particularly you'll see it on your heavy bench guns. They'll get too smooth and you actually lap them and give them a slight roughing, very, very slight. But that is your objective, so that it will have more grab on the patch and pull your accuracy back in. Okay, so that's a wrap on the questions that I got via email. I want to thank you for sending those emails to me. I really appreciate the feedback and lets me know people are watching and interested when they have questions. So some people, I just email them, you know, right back and let them know, you know, I answer their question that way. Some of them, you know, I feel like a video is warranted, and so I did it that way. By all means, I hope to see you all at the range. Thank you. Okay, everyone. So in the beginning of the video, I told you I would showcase my bench. I nearly forgot. So I started putting stuff away, which is actually better for this. So this bench is modified by me. I did not build this bench. I just changed a couple things. It originally had folding table legs, like off of a regular table. It was a little bit light, gave me a little bit of wobble. So what I did is replace them with galvanized pipe legs. These are 1.25 inch pipe, and they're set at 10 degrees forward and backward, and also splayed out right and left. So what I did is took some pipe couplers, cut them at a compound angle, welded them on plates, and just screwed them to the bottom. So that gave me 10 degrees out in both directions. The overall bench is 60 inches, so I believe that's the same as my wife's. Pretty similar. It gives me room for all of my guns. There's a platform on here. The usable part of the platform is 5.5 inches by, well, the whole thing is 11.5 wide, but because of these pieces of all thread and the nuts, you can't use it all. So you end up with about 6.5, 7 inches of width, which is plenty for what I'm doing. The width of the bench itself is 11.25, so they used 1x12 for top, bottom, and then this is a box design, so it actually has a little trap door here that I can store my shooting wind flags, you know, the wind flag rods in. And actually, if there's room, you could put the whole wind flag in there, but I end up putting some other random stuff, shooting supplies in there. So it is hollow, which helps for the weight, hauling it and things. It's not excessively heavy. The front adjusts on these 4 pieces of all thread. Now they have a jam nut here locking them in, and then what I did is I found these quick release nuts. So they're threaded, partially threaded, but then if you tip them at an angle, they just slide on and off, and then when you go to tighten them, the threads catch and it holds. So it makes changing this a lot faster. So I take those off. Say I'm going from 50 yards to 100. I know I need to come up, you know, whatever, an inch or so. So then I'll run the nuts on the lower side up. I'll level it and then throw my nuts, my handles on, tighten it down. The back here slips on and off. it just secures with 2 bolts, but it comes down for movement, for shipping. I use a drummer's seat. So the reason I like it is it's supportive and wide, but also very adjustable. So one thing that this bench differs a lot from my wife's is total height. So this total height is 35 inches, a little bit on the tall side, but it fits me pretty well. It does have adjustable feet that I welded on to the bottom. They're nice for setting up and getting it level and everything, but they do give me the slightest bit of wiggle sometimes. So on concrete, things like that, more secure gravel, they're fine. If the gravel is loose, because they are a knob and socket type foot, it will wiggle a little bit. I'm trying to figure out a way to fix that. I may peen those cups tighter so that it can't wiggle, but anyhow, there's all kinds of cutouts here. I'll show you. Let me grab the camera. The cutout here is for the rifle to lean into. There's a couple cutouts here. This originally was turned the other way, I think, is why it's like that. You don't really need this cutout up here. But this one and this one here, one holds fresh patches, one I put a little Tupperware in there and it holds dirty patches because you clean every shot. There's also cutouts for ramrod and drop tube. Down here is another Tupperware container for random stuff. I use a string and a clip to hang my patch material on, so it is always at the ready. There's a little eyelet for the false muzzle to be tied off to. There is also a spot for my hammer. This is just a repeat because the drop tube and ramrod hang down below there. This is the trap door I was talking about. So little piece of leather on here just to protect everything. Other than that, I'll just give you another look at it. Okay guys, appreciate you watching. Thank you. Okay, so I know I just was tearing the bench apart and realized that I didn't talk about these little orange things on the legs. So what they are 3D printed plastic pieces that I hook my bungee straps to when I tarp the bench. So anywhere I go, I try and set up the night before and then I tarp the bench. I need a way to secure the tarps, so I 3D printed these rings. They slide up and down the legs, but then when the bungee strap pulls on it, it acts as a stopper and binds, so it doesn't let it slide. That's how that works. Alright, thank you guys.